This week, Apple made a highly requested change to liquid glass, iPhone Air sales are reportedly tumbling, Samsung just launched a major competitor, Vision Pro, the UK is coming after Apple's so-called App Store monopoly, and GM's CEO just doubled down on ditching CarPlay while citing Steve Jobs as the inspiration. I'm Danny, this is the Apple Top 5 Weekly, where we break down the biggest Apple stories of the week. So let's start with Apple's latest update to liquid glass. In the latest iOS 26 beta, Apple is finally letting users tone down the transparency, or really the glassiness, of liquid glass. It's not the full slider people were hoping for, but there's now a simple toggle in settings under display and brightness for tinted mode. It makes a subtle but meaningful difference, especially if you've struggled with readability since liquid glass got launched. Personally, I like the more transparent look, but what do you guys think? Either way, this update should roll out to everyone within the next couple of weeks. So that's a nice little win for usability, but not everything's looking great in Apple land this week. The iPhone Air, well, it might be going the way of the iPhone Mini. Apple is said to be cutting iPhone Air production to borderline end of production levels. This comes right after Samsung reportedly canceled its own thin and light competitor, the S26 Edge, following similarly weak sales. So it's not just an Apple problem. The market for ultra slim phones just might be thinner than everyone expected.
Got 'em.
For what it's worth, I actually really loved the Air, and you can check out my full iPhone Air vs 17 Pro review linked in the description below. Maybe thin and light isn't working for phones, but in headsets, that's exactly Samsung's plan with their new Vision Pro competitor, the Galaxy XR. Apple released an updated Vision Pro this week that didn't solve any of the core issues like price or weight. Samsung's new headset undercuts the Vision Pro's price by $1,700 and weighs almost 50% less. Why does this matter for Apple? Well, Apple's Vision Pro has largely been more of a premium niche product, but if Samsung is making similar tech more affordable, Apple's spatial computing lead might face more pressure than the pressure it puts on your face. But Apple's not just dealing with hardware competition. The UK government wants alternative app stores, which could shake things up globally. The UK is the latest country to go after Apple for anti-competitive behavior. Like the EU, they want to allow alternative app stores, in-app payments outside of Apple's system, and give users more control over default apps. So why does this matter if you're not in the UK? Because other governments are watching closely, including the US, which is already working on similar rules. Apple's response is that opening things up could lead to weaker privacy, more security risks, and a less seamless experience overall. I'd love to set Google Maps as my default and buy subscriptions without the 15 to 30% Apple tax, but I do get Apple's point. Third-party app stores can be risky, but still, if people want to sideload apps and take that risk, I don't see why they shouldn't be allowed. Would you use a third-party app store if Apple gave you the option? And finally, our last and maybe strangest story of the week, GM is doubling down on ditching CarPlay, and they've got an interesting reason why. This week, GM's CEO Mary Barra and Chief Product Officer Sterling Anderson sat down with The Verge, where Barra confirmed that CarPlay and Android Auto won't be offered in future gas or electric vehicles. Instead, GM's rolling out its own infotainment system. The thinking isn't unique to GM. Other automakers want their own systems too. It's partly about branding, partly about data, and yes, about upselling subscriptions. GM's logic here kinda has me scratching my head. In Sterling Anderson's own words,
frankly, it's a very Jobsian kind of approach to things, right? And the removal of the disk drive, nobody liked that. Everybody on the forums and Facebook was complaining about it. But it was really a, look, guys, flash storage really is the future. Get on board, you'll see that.
Basically, he's saying removing CarPlay is what Steve Jobs would do. I get what he's going for, but that's a strange person to cite when you're talking about removing an Apple product. I don't think anyone's too happy about losing CarPlay, and I haven't seen any automaker system I'd prefer over having my phone apps right there on the screen. But hey, to each their own. All right, that wraps up this week's Apple Top 5. Let me know what you think. Are you siding with Samsung, GM, or the regulators this week? Hit like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel, and I'd appreciate it. Anyways, I'll catch you next Friday for another round of Apple headlines. Bye!